Hello, and welcome to the Unit 2 of the Business Environment course. We're now going to look at the competitive structure of industries. Now, when we talk about competitive structure of industries, what do we mean by that, or in terms of what is its significance? Let us understand this first. When we are looking at any business does not survive in a void. It is actually existing along with other businesses also. Now when we look at other businesses, like say for example, if we are talking about a soft drink company like Coca-Cola, there, are we seeing that who are its competitors? Are its competitors only Pepsi or, say, for example, the other soft drink makers? Or is it that there are some more competitors to be explored? Now, if we are talking about some other competitors that need to be explored, who are these competitors? So let us understand this first as to what do we mean by a competitor. A competitor can be a direct competitor, a competitor can be an indirect competitor. What do we mean by direct and indirect competitor? A very pertinent question, which actually, somewhere down the line it um, trickles the mind into thinking as to what are we talking about? Are we talking about something like, do we actually see a head-on competition happening? People fighting? No. We know that company is nothing but a group of people. These group of people are doing what? They are actually working for a common goal. Now if they are working for a common goal, so that means that every company will have a different goal. If that being the case, then that means that if a company like Coca-Cola has competitors, that is every company having working towards their common goal, so then these competitors are likely to be all those people who are serving the common customer need. What is that need? That need is nothing but the need to quench thirst. Now, thirst for a customer can be quenched not only by Coca Cola, it can be quenched by Pepsi, it can be quenched by Thumbs Up, it can be quenched by Fanta, and n number of other soft drinks that you can think about. Now, having said that, can thirst be only quenched by soft drinks? No, that we already know this. So thirst can be quenched by other means also, like water, coffee, tea, lassi, charch, and you name it. So therefore, when we talk about competitor analysis or talking about competitors in the environment, we need to understand the fact that competitors are not only head on competitors, but there are some other competitors like who are indirect competitors. That is to say, and that is what brings us to the Porter's five forces model. When we look at this model, you will see that this model espouses the fact that there are five types of forces which are acting in a particular industry or exerting force. What are these five type of forces? One is the intensity of rivalry, which is also known as rivalry amongst competing sellers. Then there is the bargaining power of buyers, bargaining power of suppliers, threat of potential entrants, and threat of substitutes. Let us now look at one by one the power of each of these components. Look at as to when these potential entrants are likely to be strong or weak. Potential entrants are likely to be weak when there is a sizable economies of scale involved. That is to say that if the amount of investment required to survive or establish oneself in an industry is large, then the threat of potential entrance is weak. But say, for example, if there isn't sizable economies of scale or the industry does not require the potential entrants to have sizable economies of scale, then it is highly likely that the threat of potential entrants is likely to be stronger. Same is the case that if there are cost and resource disadvantages independent of size, then the threat of the potential entrants is likely to be high. If the brand preferences and customer loyalty is very high, then the threat of potential entrants is likely to be weak. If it is vice versa, then it is likely to be strong. Capital requirements and other specialized resource requirements, all the more linked with sizable economies of scale, again actually play a very important role in determining whether the potential entrant's power to enter into or establish in an industry is strong or weak. Access to distribution channel, very important. When we look at the distribution channel as such, so you would see that the access makes a very important part. If the access is easy, threat of potential entrance is likely to be strong. If it is not that easy, it is likely to be weak. Regulatory policies play a very important role in determining whether the potential entrants are likely to be strong or weak. If the regulatory policies are cumbersome, you will see that the threat of potential entrance is likely to be weak. However, if you see that the regulatory policies are quite flexible, then you would see that the threat of potential entrance is likely to be strong. Tariffs, international trade restrictions, all the more linked with regulatory policies. In same case, if they are very high, then the potential entrants are not likely to enter. Similarly, the ability of the industry incumbents to launch vigorous initiatives to block a newcomer's entry also plays a very important role in determining whether the threat is weak or strong. Let us look at the other force, intensity of rivalry. That is, how are the competitors matching each other? And if they are matching each other with fresh moves, then the rivalry is strong. If there is slow market growth, then also the rival. Okay, so since we have seen when the intensity, the power of the potential entrance is going to be strong or weak, now we will look at how the intensity of rivalry is going to fare up, or when are they going to be stronger. Let us look at the fact that it is likely to be stronger if the number of buyers is less. And if the number of buyers is less, that means what? That means there is going to be a slow market growth. And this is likely to initiate fresh moves from the competitor and therefore likely to make a case for a stronger rivalry. The number of rivals, if they are increasing, if they are of equal size, and the competitive capability is increasing, then also the intensity of rivalry is likely to be stronger. The buyer's cost of switching brand is low. Like say for example, in when we have chips, we don't actually think twice before switching a brand, do we? Let us look at the industry conditions. They might tempt the rivals to use price cuts to boost volumes, sales volumes as such. Again, a strategic move, like say for example, if the rivals engage in backward integration or forward integration, that is, they themselves become the manufacturers or they themselves become the distributors, then it is likely to have a big payoff. Again, in terms of vision, objectives, and strategies, country of origin, the diversity, if it increases, then also the intensity is likely to get stronger. If the outsiders are acquiring weak firms, then also the intensity of rivalry is likely to be stronger. Let us look at when does the substitute power become stronger. It becomes stronger when the a good number of substitutes readily available. They are attractively priced. That is to say, like for example, if I were to say, look at a plastic bucket. A plastic bucket has been able to substitute who? The earlier versions of iron buckets. And that is why they have been able to substitute, because they are movable, they are light, and their functionality has not changed. Therefore, substitute power of the plastic buckets was is been so strong that the industry itself has changed. The bucket industry itself has changed. Changed from what? Changed from iron buckets to plastic buckets. Again, the quality and performance of the substitutes, as I said, it is very much relevant. The lower the end user switching cost. If the switching cost is not very high or it is very low, then the substitute power becomes very strong. Again, if the end users become more comfortable with using substitutes, then also their power becomes stronger. When does the bargaining power of the suppliers become strong? Again, when the industry members themselves incur high cost in switching the purchases, then it becomes very strong. That is, if the supplier is supplying very a differentiated input, an input which cannot be obtained anyhow from any other place, or it is serving as a USP for the end product. What is a USP? Unique selling proposition. So if it is giving that kind of aura to the end product, then we would see that the supplier power is strong. Again, if the needed inputs are in short supply, that is to say that it is critical. Say, for example, look at China. China today is the global leader in supply of coal because it has the largest coal mines. So China holds the world at ransom. Ransom to do what? Ransom in terms of supply of coal. So similarly is the case with rare metals, rare elements. So China actually is exerting this power of supply. It is strong. Look at the fact that if there are fewer suppliers, like OPEC, oil producing nations, there are few, only few countries have oil. So if few countries have oil, then that means what? That means that they are in commanding positioning. And if they are in commanding position, that means they are likely to do what? They are likely to call the shots. They are likely to say, okay, today it is going to be $100 per barrel. We are going to curtail the production. If we curtail the whole production, oil production goes down, then what happens? The oil prices in the international market rise. And if the oil prices in the international market rise, then what happens? Therefore, there is a lot of inflation that we see in the respective countries who are buying that oil. Since they are buying that oil, and therefore there will be lot of foreign foreign exchange expenditure that will go into play, or that will go into procurement of the oil. Again, if some suppliers threaten to integrate forward, that is, they say, fine, we will, you don't want to buy from us, don't worry, we will serve it to the customers. So if they are going to serve to the customers, then what will happen? They are likely to actually win the race. They are likely to call the shots, and therefore the buyer is at loss. The person who is buying from the supplier is at loss. Take, for example, if a wholesaler actually decides that he is going to turn into a retailer, so then what will happen? He will say, okay, fine, I will command the margins. I will take all the extra premium that the intermediaries are charging. And if they are going to do that, then what happens? The retailer, the dealer who is actually buying from the supplier is likely to be at loss because they don't have the wherewithal to procure that particular resource. And eventually, what will happen? Eventually, their business will die down. And this is what makes the power of suppliers strong. So it's a very powerful force in an industry and governs the dynamics of the industry. So now we're going to look at as to when is the bargaining power of the buyers going to be stronger. It is going to be stronger when the buyer's switching cost to competing brands or substitutes is low. That is to say that the buyer does not incur any cost. Now, what kind of cost? Cost in terms of finance, in terms of physical labor, in terms of mental labor. Either which case, the switching cost is calculated. That is to say that the buyer, say for example, if he or she doesn't mind spending 1 rupee extra for physical comfort, the switching cost is less. Similarly, if the buyer does not incur a lot of physical labor, say for example, today I say that you want to buy a 10 rupee pen, and the 10 rupee pen is actually available at a retail store near you, just not even 50 steps from your house. You don't mind actually buying from there, right? But supposing that 10 rupee pen is not available at your retail store. Instead of the 10 rupee pen, there's a 50 rupee pen which is available. And the 10 rupee pen is actually available at a store which is 3 kilometers from your house. Would you be willing to go and buy it? No, never. Do not do that, right? Why? Because there is a physical labor involved, and you're likely to not incur that much of physical labor cost. Similarly, if we are looking at a person who is comfortable with a particular lawyer, with a particular doctor, with a particular charter accountant, why? Because these people might give him or her a peace of mind. That is, like say for example, with a doctor, if someone is very comfortable, one hardly shifts, right? Why? Because there is a trust which develops, and the customer does not develop that trust with everybody, right? So there's a mental cost involved. If the buyers are large, then they can demand concessions, then their power is going to be stronger. If there are large volume purchases, then also their power is likely to get stronger. If the buyer demand is weak, it is declining, then they their power becomes strong. Why? Because they don't need that product. They can negotiate with the supplier saying that we don't need this product, but anyways, she's just selling it, we'll buy it. Few buyers exist, then also their power becomes strong. Identity of the buyer, so for example, it adds prestige. So for example, if you look at private institutions, if they get a contract from the government, then what happens? It adds to their prestige. That is to say, they can actually quote about saying everywhere that, see, we are the suppliers to the government. And this results in what? This results in more and more orders flowing from the private sector. Rather than the government sector, of course it does. But private sector, more orders come in because then they come the so-called the trusted brand. Quantity and quality of information which is available, that also adds to the buyer's bargaining power. If the information is available and he or she knows that this particular product is also available at so and so destination, they are likely to negotiate. Again, if the buyer has the ability to postpone purchases, there is no need, there is no hurry. So then the buyer will actually take some time. They will engage in negotiation. And the day they engage in negotiation is the day that their power is strong. If they don't intend engage in negotiation, their power is weak. They are not likely to command any premium. They are not likely to command. Oh, sorry, they are not likely to command any discounts. Supplier will not give them because supplier knows. No, come on, you don't have any option. You have to buy from us. So the buyer's power becomes weak. If the buyer has the threatens to integrate backward, now what do we mean by this? We mean to say that, say for example, the buyer says that, say, oh come on, you're not going to give it to me? Fine, I will make it myself. Say for example, today you want to actually go and dine out, but then you don't feel like going down to dine out, so you order from Swiggy, and the Swiggy fellow or Zomato fellow actually fails to deliver. So what do? You will cancel the order and start preparing at home. What have you done? You have threatened the supplier for backward integration. And this is what plays a critical role in deciding whether the buyer's power